You know what I think about sin? Brother, what's that, brother? What's that, brother? That's what I think about it. For more spiritual growth, you keep on watching. You understand? You keep tuned in every week. Yeah? Don't be missing an episode and talking about how your life's falling off. Because that was your fault. Yeah, I'm looking at you. That was your fault. So tune in for next episode. Brother,
Hi guys, it's your girl here, Bebe, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk. Yes guys, it's another week, it's another Friday, which means that we're back with another installment of Let's Talk. If you're new here, my name is Bebe, and I am a singer-songwriter and talk show host. Okay, so in this episode, as you can already tell by the title, we are going to be talking about that period of isolation, okay? That period of isolation that God puts you in when you really don't want to be, but you absolutely need to be for your own good, right? Before we get into that, please make sure that you hit the thumbs up. Please make sure that you hit the notification bell and subscribe so you can be notified when I upload next. Okay, I'm not even going to talk too much in this part. Let's just get straight into it. Don't be afraid to be alone. This is a tough one, guys. This is a tough one for many of us who love to be among people that we love to give love, or people that have, attachment issues, or people that have detachment issues, abandonment issues, people that just have past traumas, people who can be, tend to be quite clingy. It affects different people in various different ways. Various different people have got for various different reasons. Various different people for various different reasons struggle to be alone. And I want to first start by saying that being alone is not a bad thing. Being lonely, on the other hand, I would say probably is, because you can be alone but still have a very full life in terms of friends and family, community, whether that's work, whether that's in your hobbies, in your church, etc., etc. But being lonely suggests that actually there is nowhere else or no one else that you can confide in, that you can trust, that you can speak to and build community with. And that's not okay. I'm actually going to read, as always, the Google definitions of these words because I want to make sure that we are just speaking factually about these things. So, alone. Alone simply means there was no one else present. So in your presence, there was no one else present, okay? Lonely. Because one has no friends or company is the first definition that comes up. Without companions, solitary. So the words actually do have quite distinctive meanings, and they are quite different from each other, but they are often used very interchangeably because oftentimes people who are alone are sometimes also lonely. So let's look into that. Okay, now from a believer, a Christian's perspective, there are times in your faith work where isolation is a must. In order for God to work in you, through you, for you, you are going to have a period of just you and God. And it can be very uncomfortable because a lot of that time is you reflecting on what needs changing about you. And sometimes it means going back to past things that you feel like you've buried or let go of and unearthing them so that they can be uprooted, so that God can deal with them once and for all. But in order to be able to be successful in that period, you first have to have, one, a relationship with God, an understanding of who he is and what it means to walk with him. And the only way to do this is by reading your Bible. You're not going to know what God means or what God is calling you to do, what God is calling you to change, or why he's got you in this period of isolation if you don't know how God operates. So I'm not going to make this a sermon, but I'm going to say and encourage my fellow Christian brothers and sisters, or anyone who's interested in beginning their faith walk, read your Bible. Read your Bible, because you're going to see the stories of so many men and women where God was calling them to do great and mighty things, he had to take them away from their family, from their friends, from their society, from their environment in order for them to truly be tested and tried and grow. Because a lot of the times people see the tribulations as a setback, when really there are a launch pad. Because once you get through those tests, once you get through those hurdles, you are going to be so much further ahead than you could have ever imagined had you not gone through what you went through. I know a lot of the time we make this joke in the last couple of years, people say, you know, I'm going to make a prayer asking God to not make me his strongest soldier. And I get it, I get the joke, because life can be rough. Life can be really, really hard. And I think we've all at this point, especially after the pandemic, experienced months, weeks, or years of just what feels like unending hardship or unending sadness or sorrow or disappointment or bad news. But where are you right now? Some of you might still be in that season. Some of you might have actually just come out of that season. But what I want to tell you is that if you're watching this video right now, it means that the season of doom and gloom is going to come to an end. In the same way, that season of being isolated and alone is going to come to an end. I've seen so many people in their mid to late 20s say they don't have any friends. I don't have any friends. I've heard so many people online and in real life say, I actually don't have friends. I don't have anyone that I can call. If I was to get married this year, I wouldn't even know who I would invite to my wedding. I don't have friends. And at first it made me really, really sad. Like, of course that is sad. You don't want, you know, it's not a nice feeling to feel like you have no one outside of your family. And some people don't even have their family to be able to communicate with, to be able to build community with. Where the only time you feel like you're really socializing is when you go to the shop or when you go to work. That's not a nice feeling. But you have to understand why you're in that period of your life. And if I'm being honest, there was a time in my life where I struggled to be alone. I wanted to be around my friends all the time. I didn't want to have a second to be in my own thoughts. I just wanted to be with my friends. That was like another high, okay? Some people it was drugs, for me it was just being around my friends and listening to music. Those are my highs, right? So when friends started dropping like flies, I said, what's going on, Lord? I don't like this. This is like, I felt like everything around me was crumbling. But what really, and while that wasn't untrue to an extent, what was really happening was God was removing the distractions. God was removing the fog, the mist, and he was making a way for me to be able to see what my life is right now. And I need to make a choice. Do I want to continue on this road of self-destruction because of all the past hurts and pains, or do I want to face them with God? And either option from the onset, doesn't sound appealing. But with the self-destructive route, at least there's like temporary pleasures along the way. The one with God, there's a long period there of pure discomfort. And I had to ask myself, am I ready to embark on that long journey with God of discomfort? You need to ask yourself, are you ready to embark on that journey with God? Or are you okay to continue to self-destruct? Because that's the only two options you really have. There is no middle ground. The middle ground is the lie. See, this is where a lot of people find themselves stuck, is in the lie, in the middle. We find ourselves in that limbo where we think that we can do a little bit of healing, a little bit of self-destruction, and it kind of balances itself out. It doesn't. You're only pushing yourself further down that left path. And it gets harder and harder every single time you want to actually, because now you're creating new hurts. You're creating new problems. You're inviting in new demons, new battles that you weren't even for you. You're just picking them up along the way because you've chosen this path that soothes the flesh but continues to corrupt the soul. So I just want to encourage that if you are in that period of your life where you find that friends, maybe even a partner, maybe even some family members, where things are just starting to kind of disintegrate before your very eyes, starting to dissolve, are starting to just fade away, and you can't seem to grab your hand quick enough to keep them. Something's shifting. And when something is shifting, you need to make a choice on what that shift means. It can mean you go back 20 steps, or it can mean you can go forward 20 steps. So let's just talk about it a little bit. So alone time. It's going to look different for so many people. It's going to look so different. The reason why I wanted to make sure that I distinguish between lonely and alone is because, again, a lot of people use the words interchangeably, understandably, but they're not actually the same. They have a different meaning. So like me right now, I'm alone while I'm filming this. But I know that my mum's around the corner, I know that my brother's at work, I know that my dad's there, I know that my friends are just a phone call away. I'm not lonely. But in this moment, as I'm filming, I am alone. When you are in this alone time with God, sometimes it can also still feel quite lonely, because you might find that even your community suddenly are just too busy. There's no time to check in on you. Everybody's doing their own thing, which is like fair enough. But now you, single, alone, and now feeling lonely, not actually lonely, but feeling lonely, it can feel quite sad. So what is this period of isolation then that I talk about? If it's not being lonely, if it's not being alone, what am I referring to? I'm referring to a period in your life where the focus is on elevation, is on growth, is on edification. That is not comfortable or easy. It is not. It is not at all. But it is not inherently designed to be, because when you're going into a new level, into a new chapter of your life, you are going to have to shed some dead weight. You're going to have to say goodbye to some habits. You are going to possibly even have to say goodbye to some people. And that's not easy. That's not an easy thing to do. Human beings, we are creatures of habit. And once we've kind of built a formula for ourselves, or built a routine or a pattern for ourselves, we kind of just want to stick to that, because there is a sense of security and comfort there, because we know what's there, we know what's in that, and we know what it gives us, and we can rely on that to an extent. But when the call comes now to disrupt that and change everything, is that a shock to the system? Is it a shock? And let me tell you, one of the things I used to hate more than anything, ask me, one of the things I used to hate more than anything was change. I hated, and I'm using hate because I genuinely hated change. All I craved for was stability. I just wanted things to be like this. I didn't want peaks and valleys. I didn't want mountains and hills. I didn't want there to be dips. I just wanted a smooth road. And it just wouldn't happen. It lasts for about maybe a couple of months, and then we're right back into, the roller coaster. And I'm just like, do you hate me at this point, Lord? Because I'm asking for stability and you're giving me everything but. But check the irony in this. When I finally said, all right, I'm just going to have to go with the change whether I like it or not, because clearly, no matter how much I am striving, so in my own flesh, striving for this stability, the only thing that it keeps breeding is more chaos and instability. I'm just going to have to do it God's way. And the moment I started doing it God's way, guess what? Stability. So even when life is doing this, my spirit is like this. Why? Because it's anchored in God's will for me. It's not dependent on my own understanding. It's not dependent on my own strength. It's purely dependent on the grace of God. And so life can still do all of this, but I'm still, and don't get me wrong, sometimes it might tilt a little bit, it might do a little bit of this, but it'll always come back to this because of what it's anchored in. It's amazing how much healing takes place in that period of isolation. When it's just you and God, you actually get to hear him. When you are committed to being obedient to that period of your life, being intentional in that period of your life of isolation, when you come out of the other side of it, you're going to be a new person. You're not going to be the same, I'm telling you. You won't. You can't be. You can't be. You'd have been made anew. But that doesn't mean there's not going to be things that will crop up and prop up to try and throw you off track and move you out of that. Oh, there will. Trust me, there will. An ex might hit you up. Old friends you used to do rubbish with might hit you up. You know, people you haven't even spoken to since 2000 and what will hit you up. Your boss might be, you might get a new boss that becomes an absolute nuisance, a tyrant even. You might find that, you know, you get a flat tire on the like things will crop up. But if you remember that you're in this period because there is a refinement happening, you won't be shaken. Because that foundation will be solid. Why? Because it's built on your faith of what God is going to do for you in this period of your life. So it's not easy, child. It's not easy. But is it worth it? Absolutely. There was a long time where I was in that period of isolation and I was like, it was getting to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm tired, God. I don't like this anymore. You know, I feel like I've done my best, but I'm tired. And he said, you're getting tired because you started doing it on your own again. Come back to me and I will give you what you need to make sure you get through this. And I said, oh, no, Lord, you're right. You are right. Let me come back to you. So yeah, I was trying to do it in my own strength again. You know, creatures of habit, you know, human beings, we tend to do that. But I had to come back to God and say, okay, I surrender to you, Lord. I submit this to you. I need your strength. And I kid you not, sometimes in a matter of minutes, I'm finding him. And I can just get on. I remember there was like, I can't remember, there was a time I was like crying. I didn't even know if I was happy, if I was sad. I didn't know what I was. I just cried. But when I was crying, I didn't say anything negative or bad about myself or about the situations or anything. I just thanked God. I was like, thank you, God. Even though I don't understand, I'm just very grateful. And I'll still do whatever I needed to get done. By the time I was done, ciao, we move. Do you know what I mean? But I didn't allow myself to slip out of that period of isolation. And so it's really important that you let God be the one to say, okay, and now we're done. Now we can move on. If you try to move out of that space prematurely, ooh, that Lil Wayne meme, ooh, I'm not even joking. Pepper will follow you. Fire will follow you. It's not even a joke. I'm not even trying to be fun. Fire will follow you. Because you see, when we're dealing with matters of the spiritual, okay, it's serious. There's an ongoing war there. Okay, a lot of people think the devil is a joke man. He's not a joker. He's on a mission. He's on an assignment of his own, and that is to steal, kill, and destroy. So he's never sleeping. He's always waiting for an opportunity to nab you. Just is to provoke you, edge you just a little bit, enough, deceive you just enough for you to make the decision on your own. And once you jump off that ledge, I promise there's no saving you. He ain't gonna save you. He's gonna watch you fall and crash and burn. And in fact, he'll hope that you will pass so that you can join him in eternal hell. Be very careful. Be very careful. Like, mindfulness is something that is talked about a lot in the Bible. And I cannot lie to you. Because of the way the world is now, when you think of mindfulness, a lot of people just think yoga and all those kind of like other, new age religions. But this existed in the Bible. Being mindful is literally encouraged throughout the Bible. We're continuously encouraged to be mindful for the schemes of the enemy. because he is always working. And we can see that right from the beginning in Adam and Eve, when the serpent came. Being mindful is so important. Don't just live life like, let days pass you by, moments pass you by, and you can't recall what you did 20 minutes ago. Absolutely not. Be mindful. What are you doing? What are you consuming? What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you eating? How can somebody ask you, how was your day? What did you do today? I don't know. We make joke of these things, but they're actually not funny, because so many of us live like that, like machines, like robots, you just on autopilot. When actually your life is to be lived fully, vibrantly, abundantly. That's what Jesus died for. So that you could live free from flesh, free from sin, free from slavery to sin. So, in that period of isolation, don't run from it. Just ask God for his strength, his provision, his wisdom, because it is going to see you through to the end of that period. And you're not going to be the same person as long as you don't want to be the same person. Because what I will say about a lot of us, is we say you want the change, but we don't really want the change, because the change requires coming out of our comfort zone. The comfort zone I was mentioning earlier. It means coming away from certain habits and routines that just make us feel good, but actually don't have any meaning or purpose in our lives, other than that temporary gratification that we get from it. Be careful about how you spend your time, who you spend your time with. That's why that period of isolation is so important. There's countless people throughout the Bible who had those periods of isolation. They had to have those periods of isolation, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have been able to hear from God. They'd have just been society, their family members, whatever, the law, and they would have missed their calling, they would have missed their purpose, they would have missed to do the great things that God had willed for them to do. But in that isolation, they were able to hear God. In that moment of just stillness with God, crying out to God, praying to God, saying, God, help me, hear me, teach me, show me. And God did. So, if you find yourself in a space where it feels like friends, family, maybe colleagues that you're really close to, maybe people in your wider community in terms of where you have your hobbies or whatever the case might be, are suddenly just too busy for you, or they're just dropping out of your life. You can question it, of course. You can say, God, is this me? Am I just being a terrible friend and family member, or is this from you? And when you get the answer, act accordingly. Because a lot of the time we ask God things, and then when he shows us and he tells us, we're like, it's not that. It's me, it's probably myself, it's just my negative thoughts. No. Be very careful. This is why also that period of isolation is so important, so you know how to hear from God. Because a lot of the time people are not sure if it's their thoughts or if it's God, or, well, you won't know because you don't know how God communicates. And again, how do we know how God communicates? When we read his word, when we read the Bible. So when you find yourself in that period of isolation, don't run from it. Don't run from the discomfort, embrace it. Hey God, this doesn't make me feel good. I'm not sure I like this, but I'm going to trust you. But I don't know why everybody's just jumping around me like flies, but I'm going to trust you. I don't know why you're not letting me get married right now, but I'm going to trust you. I don't know why I'm not getting this promotion at work, even though I'm the hardest working on this team, but I'm going to trust you. Trust him. Above all else, trust him. It's not going to be that way forever. It's just a season that if we allow it to, will change everything about how we see life, how we live life, and how we enjoy life. Because life is to be enjoyed. And this is one of the saddest things, especially when it comes to Christians. that makes me so sad. There are so many Christians that do not enjoy life. It's because they don't know truly who God is and what his promises say. Because if you know, you're going to live your best life every day. You are. I am a living testimony of that. I'm a living testimony of being so miserable for so long. So giving my life, rededicating my life to Christ, and joy. Like I said, even when things are doing this, I'm still like this. I'm still on solid ground. It's an amazing feeling. And it's a feeling I'd want everybody, everywhere, anywhere to have. Because there's such liberation in that. You can truly be who you are without the confinements and labels of society. You can just be. Don't run from the isolation, because there is something in that that is going to reveal maybe why things haven't worked out for you so far, why you can't stay in a relationship for long, why you have so much resentment towards certain things or certain people, why you continuously doubt yourself, why you continuously say negative or do harmful things to yourself. In that period of isolation, there's so much that's going to be unearthed, uncovered about you. But are you ready to face that truth? It's not easy. It's not easy. This is another reason why a lot of people don't like counseling. Because with counseling, you have to stick through it. And it does also depend on the counselor you have, of course. But you have to stick through it, because what a lot of people, I've heard it so many times from podcasts and people in real life, they always run at the point where they're being confronted with who they are, the damage, the hurt, the pain, the traumas. Once they start reaching that confrontation stage, they run. They don't want to go there. But that is the time when you are supposed to stay. Cry. Scream to your counselor. That's what they're there for. They're there for that. That triggered emotion that you've got, release it to them. That's exactly why you're in counseling and therapy. That's exactly why you're there. Don't run. Stay there. Feel all of those emotions. Cry, scream, run around if you want to, roll on the floor, do it, but stay there. Don't run. Stay there. Because once that moment passes and those emotions fade, those feelings simmer down, clarity, the fog suddenly disappears and you can see again. And you're like, oh my gosh. So that's where I was stuck. So that's why I was struggling to make friends. This is why I'm so fearful of men or fearful of women. This is why I haven't been able to have a relationship with God or my children or my parents. And then the healing begins. But so many people, they just touch the surface and they're like, ouch, too hot, and they run. And so they never get to experience or see what it's like once they have made it through that. It's not easy. I'm not here to say it's easy. It is not easy. But I'd hope for many of us, it reaches a point where we're just like, no, change has to happen. I can no longer continue to live as I was or even as I am. Change has to happen, and it has to happen now. So when it starts happening, don't run. Be mindful, understand that what I'm praying for, what I've been asking for is happening. And so I need to be prepared. I need to be ready. How can you be armored and prepared? Read your word. Pray. Make sure you're having quality time with you and God, morning, afternoon, night. Because understand that when you go through that period of isolation, the devil will, I'm telling you, the devil will try. He will try you. Oh, he will try you to no end. Because all he needs you to do is just to make that one slip up that keeps you rolling down, and before you know it, you're in a pit. Worse than you were when you started on this journey. You have to, like in the words of Cat Williams, when the devil wants to party, you've got to tell him no.
Because P. Diddy be wanting to party, and you gotta tell him no.
When the devil wants to party, you've got to tell him no. And it's easy. I find, I'm going to give this story to you guys right now as I just kind of wrap this up. I remember when I came onto my Instagram, and I think I've talked about this briefly before, but I'm just going to mention it again because it's like a classic example of how the enemy works, right? And it's a very like a very blatant one. I remember when I rededicated my life to Christ, and I announced it. I shared it because I was really excited and I was sure of it. I knew that my music, everything was going to change. I was sure of it and I was ready to make this commitment. I'm not joking. Every man I had a crush on at that time was like, hey, trying to meet up with me, trying to link up with me, trying to do the nasty with me. Every old friend I could think of that I really wanted to reconnect with at one point, but at this point had no desire to, was reaching out, talking to me, messaging me. I'm thinking, wow. Other opportunities that I'd long kind of rejected or that I was really pining for, but now no longer wanted were all coming. Oh, now we're finally happy to collab with you. And I'm thinking, when I was doing the secular and I wanted you had no time for me. Now I'm doing Christian music and now you want to collab with me. Collab with me to do what? Unless you are now a Christian platform or a Christian artist, there is no collaboration. So just forget it. But they were. All my DMs were thick and heavy. All my DMs were scary. I said, oh. And don't get me wrong, I remember the first like 2 or 3 people, probably 3 people, I was going back and forth with them. I was like, no, it doesn't make sense because and I was going back and forth. And then I was like, hold on a second. One day I was in the parking lot at Tesco, and I remember so vividly, I was in the middle of recording a voice note, and I said, scratch that, I'm not sending this voice note. I deleted the voice note, I deleted the chat, and I just never spoke to that person again. Because what am I doing? Why am I explaining to these people? This is all just a scheme that the devil set up to try and get me to just make one slip up. Because all I have to do is just say something, do something, or meet up with one of these people, and it's a wrap. It's going to be a downward spiral from there. So I said, all I need to do is just not respond, period. And some of those DMs, I don't know, because I don't know how long Instagram keeps DMs for, but they might still be there, unread, unopened. Others were deleted. I was just like, I'm not doing it, period. Like, what? Where were you people when I was living a life of sin? Where were you? You're not there. Now I want to be righteous and holy. Is when you want to harass me. Is when you want to irk my flesh. No. I rebuke you. But yeah, it was a crazy, I was like, wow. I said, wow. This, it doesn't get more blatant than this. But it's not always that obvious. It's really not always that obvious. Sometimes it can even come in the form of somebody you already know and are close with and have an attachment to. And have maybe trust and whatever. And you have to be mindful. Don't see anything as not worth praying about. Pray about every little thing. It literally tells us in the word, pray repeatedly with petition and thanksgiving. Submit your requests to who? To God. Why? Because the enemy. It tells us in the word that the battle is not of me and you, but it's of spirits and principalities. So that's in the unseen. So even when we are relaxed, we are chilling, we think everything is good, the spiritual realm is still going. There is still a war happening. So we have to be mindful. We don't have a choice. If we're ever going to want to get to the other side of it, we don't have a choice. But it does tell us also in the word that to count it as joy when we experience hardships, when we go through things, because it's going to produce perseverance. We can't enjoy the abundant life. We can't enjoy the blessings, the gifts, the fruits, whatever, if we don't know how to sustain it and persevere. Because it means every time things get hard, we're going to quit. It means every time things get hard, we're going to just forfeit to the enemy. So how's that going to work? That's not going to work. It's not going to work. You can't say, God, please give me the life that you have planned for me. But anytime it's time for you to be edified, you're running away. you're shielding, you're hiding. Or you're worse, you're running into sin. You're bolting into sin because it's where your comfort is. No, we have to want something different, but we have to want it. Me, you, we have to want it. Nobody can want it more for us than us. We have to want that change. So when you're in that period of isolation, that's what you need to see. This is training ground. Okay, I'm going to learn how to read the Bible more. I'm going to learn how to pray more. I'm going to learn how to praise and worship God. Even if it's just for 5-10 minutes in your room at the start of your day, do it. Do it. Because the first few times you do anything, it's hard. I don't remember what that statistic is, but I want to put it up here. That after you do something a certain amount of times, it becomes a habit. So in the same way, you can click on Uber Eats, in the same way, you know, you can, run to watch a Netflix series or whatever. It's the same way you can open your Bible app. Same way. Same way you can have, a Spotify. Same way you'd have to go to Spotify, listen to podcasts. Yes, instead this time you can say, I'm going to play a worship playlist. The irony in it is that it's so hard for us to want to do those things naturally. But the moment we do it, we don't even understand why we weren't doing it before. That's what your isolation time should be doing. Not worrying about when you're going to meet the right partner, when you're going to, finally make friends. No, it's about you and God, and that's it. It says, seek first the kingdom of God, and then everything else will be added onto you. He said, don't worry about food and clothes. If he can feed the birds of the sky and feed the lilies of the field, how much more you who he created in his likeness? How much more you? So you can't get caught up in wanting to keep up and appear to have or to fill the void. No, you need to focus on God. That isolation time can be the most rewarding time of your life if you want it to be. If you want it to be, if I want it to be, if we want it to be, it can be the most rewarding time of our lives. But we have to want it to be. You see, because God's not going to force us. He will encourage us. He will allow things to happen so that we can see that, maybe this is time to contact God. It's time to, come back to God. But ultimately, he's not going to force us. Because human beings, we love to do that. We love to manipulate a situation and then be like, oh yeah, God did. No, God did not do. No, he did not. What God does, you don't have to manipulate and bend and twist. No. He will make way where there is no way. He will make even the hardest heart soft for you. When it's your time, when it's your season, when it's something that he has ordained for you and he wants to bless you and give you, to elevate you, to move you, to promote you, to be a blessing to others. You don't have to worm your way in to get it, no. So be very mindful in your time of isolation. Don't run from it, welcome it. Be brave, okay? Be one of God's soldiers, be brave and firm it. Firm it. People firm worse things in friendships, in relationships, in jobs, but you can't firm isolation for a couple of weeks or months so that God can do what, no man can do. Come on. We're not being serious. We're not being serious. We need to start being serious with our lives. Let's be serious. What's not clicking, Steve? Let's be serious. Some people go to the trenches to be in a relationship. But when God is saying, starve your flesh. Impossible. Can't do it. Not going to do it. No way. That's too hard. I don't want to be God's one of strongest soldiers anymore. I unsubscribe. Really? Okay. Okay. Let's just be so for real. Come on. We want change. We gotta be willing to have things change and being uncomfortable for a while during that change and to be mindful and intentional during that change. Because what you do in that period is going to make a massive difference to what the outcome of that period will be for you. Ain't nobody perfect. I don't ever claim to be. But what I will say is that I have chosen the hard way several times, and it has only caused me more pain and discomfort, hurt. But when I chose God, here I am, relaxed, enjoying life, taking it a day at a time, and trusting God with it and through it all. Enjoy life. Life is to be enjoyed. Life is to be lived. But there are going to be times that if you really want to enjoy, you really want to see the fruits, we're going to have to be prepared for God to do the work in us. We can't avoid that part. We're not perfect. Things have to change. Things have to come out. We have to get them out. Okay, they can't stay with us in our next chapter because it's only going to damage and ruin what God has planned for us. Period. So that's all for today, guys, on Let's Talk. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you were encouraged and blessed by the teaching of the word, child. It's been your Go Ahead A to B. Please make sure that you hit the thumbs up and make sure that you subscribe and leave a comment, of course. As always, I want to keep the discussion going. Let me know your thoughts. What was your experience like? Have you had this type of experience? Can you relate to any of this? And do you have any advice for anyone else going through this at the moment? Would love to hear what you guys have to say down below in the comments. Please make sure that you also follow the socials at Talk Say the Beat to know what else you've got going on. And until next time.
Don't be missing an episode and talking about how your life's falling off. Because that was your fault. Yeah, I'm looking at you. That was your fault. So tune in for next episode. Brother,